Long ago, on the Midwestern plain, men and women gathered to watch the skies. In a sacred ritual led by a priest of the sun, these people made the ultimate sacrifice. All that is left of these earthen mounds. They may conceal the secret of a Mayan legacy. The Indians of Cahokia erected a huge circle of wooden posts to chart the movement of the sun and the moon. It sits 300 miles from the city of Chicago. It is called the American Woodhenge. The ancient astronomers have disappeared, but their calendar survives. How did they gain their knowledge of the universe?
This series presents information based in part on theory and conjecture. The producer's purpose is to suggest some possible explanations, but not necessarily the only ones, to the mysteries we will examine.
Long before the first explorers came to America, an extraordinary civilization arose in southern Illinois. The people had no metal tools, no written language. But their lives were ordered by a profound understanding of nature and the universe. On these mounds once stood the temples of a great metropolis, home to 40,000 men and women. The Indians flourished for 500 years. Then they disappeared. Beneath the mounds, scientists uncovered a fascinating clue to the origins of the lost city of Cahokia. In 1961, Dr. Warren Whittrey of the University of Illinois began an excavation on the outskirts of the mounds. In a series of deep pits, he found remnants of wooden posts. At first, he thought they were part of a giant stockade surrounding the city. As more poles were unearthed, Whittrey became convinced that a grand design lay behind their arrangement. He began to reconstruct the ancient site, sinking new posts in the original holes. What anthropologists knew about the Indians of Cahokia did not prepare him for what would be revealed. The posts seemed to form a giant circle, like a circle of stone erected 3,000 years before at Stonehenge.
We believe that the American Woodhenge functioned in somewhat the same way as the famous site in England known as Stonehenge. These sites were used by ancient people to observe sunrise at various times of the year, and the observation of sunrise served as a kind of calendar.
Woodhenge was built with a precision that is astonishing even today. It was analyzed on the same computer used for Stonehenge, and the circle at Cahokia proved more accurately aligned to the sun. From Whittrey's discovery, anthropologists were able to reconstruct the pattern of Cahokian life. They found that here was a culture different from other tribes of North America. Their society revolved around a calendar that linked men on earth with the gods who ruled the skies. Before beginning any new enterprise, the people sought the guidance of the sun. Each morning, a priest of the sun went out to greet the dawn. Like the chiefs of other tribes, his power was absolute, for only a priest could communicate with the gods. Inside the mounds was evidence that the sun priest was even more powerful than other chiefs. His death carried great import for the whole of Cahokian society. A team of archaeologists made an astonishing discovery that set Cahokia apart. 53 young women were buried in a mass grave. They had all been strangled. Nearby were the partial remains of 4 young men. It appeared that their heads and hands had been deliberately severed. The key to these mysterious deaths lay in yet another tomb, where a priest had been buried with a hoard of possessions. The lavish burial told of men and women sacrificed to ensure their priest a safe journey to the gods. Nowhere in the story of the ancient Americas was there ever such a massive ritual sacrifice. Were the Cahokians inspired by ideas from another place and time? Deep in the Mexican jungle at Teotihuacan, a remarkable culture whose religion required such sacrifices was flourishing by 500 AD. They were the Mayans. Their society was the most advanced on the entire continent. Their cities reveal a surprising knowledge of architecture and engineering. Their tower observatories map the skies as accurately as the telescopes of today. The Mayans developed the earliest written language and a system of mathematics and geometry that had no equal. While it is difficult to imagine a relationship between their culture and the early Indians of America, thousands of miles to the north, beneath the mounds, there may lie the connection between Cahokia and the ancient cities of Mexico. Dr. Witry explains.
We have identified a tentative Cahokia yard, a unit of measurement that was used over and over again in even multiples.
The Cahokia yard is nearly identical to the standard measurement used by the Mayans throughout their empire. An intriguing correspondence in time may connect their societies. The turning point in Cahokia's development came around the year 900, precisely as the Mayan civilization was drawing to an end in Mexico. The Mayans have vanished. No one knows where they fled when their cities began to die. Do the similarities in religion and astronomy tell us the Mayans went far to the north? Could they have traveled 5,000 miles to the Indians of Cahokia with their ideas and culture intact? It's incredible to imagine that the ideas of one culture could be transferred across an entire continent in a single century. How can we account for the mysterious parallels that seem to exist? Was there a bridge between the jungle strongholds of the Mayans and the mounds in Illinois? We may find an answer in the southwestern desert that lies between them. 1,000 years ago, a desert tribe called Anasazi erected a city of stone towers unlike anything else seen in this country. The secret of these strange towers in Utah has eluded scientists for many centuries. If they were storehouses, why do they have windows? If they were watchtowers, why are the windows so small? Recently, an astronomer from the Smithsonian Institution has advanced a new theory. Dr. Ray Williamson thinks they were built to observe the heavens.
What's particularly exciting about this room is that there are 3 sun alignments in it. Now, we consider this combination of 3 alignments to be an excellent calendar room. It's an excellent place, even today, where we could, if we stayed here long enough throughout the year, actually put marks on the walls to tell us what day it is, and to very accurately determine the summer solstice, the winter solstice, and the equinox.
Several of the towers have strategic windows that line up with the rising moon. It would have taken many generations of careful study to make them so accurate. Dr. Williamson believes the alignments would provide the basis for predicting eclipses, a complex procedure understood by only a few cultures.
We have indications here that they were going in the direction of developing a calendar as complicated as the Mayan calendar. That's a guess, that's a hypothesis. It's one that we're working on right now. These towers have been mysteries for years. Some people have suggested that these towers are reminiscent of the Mayan towers. I'm not sure.
Mayan observatories took a circular form, an expression in stone of the wind and the cosmos. Did they inspire the tower observatories of the Southwest?
We found recently some small evidence of Mexican influence up in this area. And perhaps that's associated with the towers that are here, I don't know. I think they're still mysteries.
"300 miles from the Anasazi, another ancient people erected a temple to the skies. They too have disappeared, but they left behind an important clue. The observatory at Casa Grande, Arizona, remains as evidence that these Indians sought to understand the universe. Of an entire pueblo, only a few walls have survived the centuries. Despite the protection of its sheltering roof, the observatory may not last for another 50 years.
The Hohokam Indians.
Robert Hicks of the University of Arizona has been investigating Casa Grande.
The alignments are very similar to Mayan astronomical alignments at the Caracol Observatory in Mexico. We find the same alignments here as we do in the Caracol, and we feel that there was an influence from Central America. We feel that a representative of this Mayan elite, somebody with a specialized knowledge about astronomy and also site planning, may have come up to direct the construction of this building.
Most anthropologists do not accept this theory. But recently, scientists have uncovered new evidence that may redefine the extent of the Mayan legacy. In the deserts of the Southwest, this country's prehistoric astronomy reached its greatest heights. If there was a link between the ancient Mayans and the Indians of Cahokia, a continent away, perhaps we will find it here. A pueblo in New Mexico may well be the crossroads in that ancient connection. It is Chaco Canyon, built out of stone and brick by the Anasazi, architects of the mysterious towers in Utah. In a massive ceremonial structure called the Great Kiva, astronomers found evidence of a scientific knowledge that rivals anything we know today. At the summer solstice, Dr. Williamson has come to observe the dawn. Every year on the 21st of June, the sun repeats a timeless pattern.
All right. Now that will just about get the sun coming over. There it comes. We're here in Chaco Canyon in a great kiva, Casa Rinconada, to determine the astronomical alignments of this building that we're in. We're here on the solstice because on the solstice the sun comes through this port that you see and falls on that low niche over there. The solstice was a special time for the Indians who constructed this building. They needed to know when the solstice occurred to set their calendar.
At the winter solstice, a ritual of fire ushered in the new year. In December, the sun seemed to stop in its winter house. The Indians mounted an elaborate display of fire and light to prompt their god, the sun, and set the year in motion. The ceremony of fire can be traced to the ancient cities of Mexico. How did it come to the Anasazi? 1,000 years ago, the dwellings at Chaco were dug into the ground. Then, quite suddenly, an extraordinary change swept the canyon. The Anasazi began to build a city of towering pueblos. Almost overnight, Chaco became an active center of agriculture and trade. Its wealth based on the rich deposits of turquoise that lay nearby. The population grew to 25,000 men and women as the Indians learned to mine the stone. The turquoise attracted merchants from far away. Some believed that Mexican traders came north seeking the sacred stone for the worship of their god Quetzalcoatl.
Turquoise is the godstone for Quetzalcoatl. It was also important to some of the other Mexican
Dr. Jonathan Raymond of Illinois State University.
If Quetzalcoatl is going to be properly served, he's got to have the turquoise that he demands. Mexico had turquoise, but not enough. The Southwest had abundant turquoise, and so the merchants of Quetzalcoatl and the other deity cults came out of North Mexico into the Southwest looking for turquoise.
The merchants were men of high status called Pochteca, employed by the courts of Mexico to supply their temples with turquoise. To Chaco, they brought new crops, more productive corn. Was it simple trade or something more? For here were the peoples of two distant cultures speaking different languages. Did they achieve a deeper communication that reached beyond trade? Was information part of the exchange? At the head of the canyon, the Indians constructed an elaborate road system stretching for 300 miles. Was it built to welcome travelers from the south? Did the merchants also receive more than the sacred stone itself? Raymond believes the Anasazi not only supplied the raw turquoise, but actually worked it into finished products. The beads and ritual mosaics used by the Mexican culture thousands of miles away.
And in time, Chaco and the other areas around it came under the heavy influence of Mexican exploitation, economic exploitation, for the betterment of these religious cults of North Mexico.
In an excavation for the National Science Foundation, Raymond unearthed dramatic evidence to support his claim. He discovered two tombs that were like no others seen in this country. Two skeletons were found, laid out on thousands of turquoise beads. 12 men had been beheaded to accompany them in death. To Raymond, the implications were clear. These were the graves of important visitors from another land.
They're not your ordinary Pueblo peoples. These are someone special. I think Pochteca.
If the Pochteca did bring new crops to the north, they undoubtedly would have taught the Indians how to grow them, passing along the astronomical knowledge necessary for a seasonal calendar. Knowledge not only of the sun and the moon, but of the stars as well. Using a computer, Dr. Raymond has found evidence to substantiate his theory.
What we think the Anasazi watched is based on what we know the historic Pueblos, like the Zuni and the Hopi, watched. We have good historic records for this. We know that they watched Orion. We know that they watched the Pleiades. We know that they watched the Gemini twins. If you take the stars that are used in the Southwest and the stars that are used in Mexico, we find that they are using many of the same stars and many of the same constellations. In fact, not only are they observing the same ones, but they're using them in precisely the same way. When we take that into consideration, and when we calculate the odds against that happening, we come up with something on the order of about 45 million to 1. In other words, the very fact that they're using the same stars, the same constellations, and using them in the same way strongly suggests that there was contact between the two areas.
Did elite members of an ancient empire carry a knowledge of the sun and the stars to the prehistoric Indians of the American desert? Could it also have been brought to a tribe in Illinois? A new discovery of modern science indicates that Mexican trade was even more extensive than had been theorized. In New York, a nuclear chemist has traced the turquoise in ancient artifacts to their points of origin. Dr. Gorman Harbottle explains his research.
We're carrying out neutron activation analysis of turquoise from mines in the American Southwest and also from artifacts which are found in Mexico. We have so far succeeded in matching some turquoise artifacts found in West Mexico with a mine outside Santa Fe, New Mexico. In consequence of this, we are beginning to get evidence that there was a turquoise trade between the high civilizations of Mexico and the American Southwest.
Did the traders from Mexico sow the seeds of their knowledge in the Southwest and beyond? Perhaps the mysterious circle at Cahokia can be traced to a legacy of astronomy and religion that the Mayans left behind.